Hello, how are you doing everyone? Yesterday, Juan introduced us to 10 exciting Switch games coming out this week, and tomorrow, Jordan will tempt us with the physical releases dropping as well. I'm James Romero, and today is the respite in between. Yes, we are back uncovering the very best eShop Switch sales that are worth picking up across the UK, EU, and US eShops that won't bust your wallet, unless of course, you go crazy and buy a bunch as I always find myself doing. Be sure to let us know your pick of the week in the comments, as each week we pick someone to win a $10 eShop voucher. We will announce last week's winner later on. Right, let's jump in and find these bargains. My pick this week is the minimalistic 2D platformer Flat Heroes. At first glance, you could be forgiven for thinking this is a developer releasing the bones of a game given you play as a simple square, but do not be fooled. This is a well-crafted, fluid, Twitch-sensitive platformer that promises lots of depth and that one more run feeling. Each stage is a simple square full of platforms and deadly obstacles that you must survive in order to progress. There's something wonderful about peeling back all of the fluff, graphical niceness and story that we attach to games to make them more engaging, and just being 100% laser focused on the gameplay. It works here because everything is so tight and well developed. There are mini games and bosses too, and the game has a great campaign as well as a survival mode where your aim is to last as many ways as possible. It's great solo, but it's also enjoyable in multiplayer. At under £2, €2 or $2, this is going to be money well spent if you decide to pick it up. Jordan, Juan, what are your picks this week?
Hey everyone, Jordan here with my pick of the week. Usually I don't like to go for region exclusive sales, but when Steredenn is on sale, it just stands out amongst the crowds. This is an absolutely badass shooter. Easily one of the best on the Switch. It's roguelike with lots of random elements which may not sit well with the purists, but I just fell in love with this game. Awesome rocking music, a fantastic, almost tangible feeling when you're destroying enemies. You can feel the crunch as they get blown up. I love the weapons, the options, everything about this game is bloody amazing. It's only on sale in North America right now, sadly, with a tasty 62% off, now just $4.99. But you know what? It's worth it full price. I don't even know why I'm recommending it during a sale, because I'd rather you just pay full price to support the developers for this astonishingly addictive, awesome game. It is really hard though. Please keep that in mind.
Thanks very much, James. This week I'm going for one of the early games which released on the Nintendo Switch, NeuroVoider. This game is one that I still love loading up, twin-stick shooter RPG, and listening to that awesome Dan Terminus synth soundtrack. It's a game I would buy for the soundtrack alone, but this has it all. Fun gameplay with a 4-player local co-op, or you can go solo, all procedurally generated levels, so each time you play is different, and plenty of bosses and enemies to take out. With 50% off, this is now the time to purchase. Take care, ladies and gents, and see you next week.
Starting out life as a French comic in the 50s, Asterix and OBELIXX, two Gaul warriors who have had their adventures pop up in everything from TV programmes and books to games. This time around, those pesky Romans are at it again, and Asterix and OBELIXX embark on an adventure with comedic moments and some decent combat. Fans of the series will enjoy this, and for everyone else, at this price point it's worth a look. At full price, steer clear. Cyber Protocol is an arcade puzzle game set in a Tron-like cyberpunk world. You impersonate the main hero, whose mission is to bring his android friend back to life by activating the protocol. The story doesn't really feature, as they rarely do with puzzle games. That said, the 100 levels of Pac-Man inspired action are fast-paced and frantic. The levels quickly ramp up to being tough. There is co-op for up to 4 on offer here, along with high scores and a tougher mode for those that want to really ratchet up the difficulty. The soundtrack is a particular highlight, and it's straight out of the 80s. All in all, a solid package at less than £1. Hyperlight Drifter is a masterpiece set in a glorious neon pixelated world. What I love is how the game manages to portray a deep story without any language, text or voiced. What you do know is that your homeworld is invaded and you play as the Drifter, a caped sword wielder who clearly isn't well as you spew blood from time to time. The world's setting is fantastic. There are giant dying titans and a shadowy monster lurking. My personal take is that this is a world in the distant future where technology is almost forgotten and old, but the beauty is that you will see what your mind interprets. Combat is punishing and Twitch sensitive. The game blends RPG and action gameplay extremely well, and the special edition on the Switch is is the definitive version, full of small upgrades. It feels perfectly at home on the Nintendo Switch. The game feels a bit like a SNES Zelda, but that's not to say it's not original. It definitely has its own personality, which oozes through the difficult and unforgiving gameplay. You won't be taking on 20 enemies at a time here. It's all about mastering the dash and slash controls in order to progress through the game's open world. That is if you can take on the enemies in your path. Visually, the world is created so well. I find the use of bright neons and dark areas to be wonderful. Yes, it is lush in places, but there are hardships and devastation visible throughout. The soundtrack by Disaster Piece is the perfect backdrop. It has a sci-fi, eerie quality to it that would be worthy of an epic film. All in all, this is a tough but brilliant game worth investing in, especially at half price. Old Man's Journey is a beautiful looking interactive story with a few puzzles thrown in. It's a short tale that will take you just a couple of hours to complete, but the tale of this old man, his regrets and his happy moments told through lovely scenes are worth visiting, especially at this low price. This one will get the heartstrings moving. This is the perfect sort of game for a lazy Sunday afternoon to pick up and just play for a couple of hours on your own. Blazing Beaks is a great little game to play with friends. Levels are randomly generated and you can play story mode with a friend cooperatively or alone. Either way, it's a blast. If you want to compete against friends, then there is a tournament mode too to test your skills against each other. For us, we loved how simple it was to pick up and play and get into. Blasting foes is super fun and reminded us a little of Enter the Gungeon, just not quite as good, but still worthwhile in its own right for sure. If you love shooters and tower defense, and you always wanted to be the bad guy, or at least an alien race bent on the destruction of Earth, then why not sign up? X-Morph Defense does a great job of merging these genres together and is a fun strategy game. And the added extra of recreating a scene from Independence Day is the cherry on this already content-filled cake. Definitely one worth picking up if you're into strategy games. Typoman is a very clever platformer that looks and in some ways feels like Limbo or other similar indie titles. Its unique point is that it uses letters very literally. Puzzles involve moving letters around to spell words in order to progress. This is not just about spelling words though, as you interact with the letters physically in the game, manipulating them in order to solve the puzzles. It's refreshing and creative. At times it's a little bit clunky, but 60% off makes this a bargain. Lumo is a love letter to isometric platformers, a genre that has been quite dormant for a long time. It features some upgraded visuals and sounds, and throws in a bunch of puzzles for good measure. There are 400 rooms to navigate, and these are a blast to be played in short bursts, or even for longer sessions. There are lots of nods to the games that came before it, but if you don't catch them, it won't impact your enjoyment. This is an addictive little game worth picking up. The story behind Bomb Chicken is reminiscent of Oddworld. You play as a mutated chicken that can lay bombs after a freak accident in one of BFC's factories. Bent on getting revenge against this greedy human corporate that turns his fellow feathered friends into finger-licking chicken, off you go, armed with bombs to save the day. The game looks and sounds good, and the core mechanic is simple but clicks pretty quickly. The game is set across various levels, including bosses and some funny moments. It's a pleasant game worth investing in. After all, with 50% off, this is just a paltry $5.99 now. Manaspark is a game that has been on sale a few times now, but at 90% off, we simply couldn't leave it off. For less than £1, this accomplished dungeon crawler is a steal. It had some real issues at launch, but the devs sorted all of that out, and what we're left with is a solid package. Just one more run roguelike feel to this one. My Brother Rabbit is a point-and-click game with a bunch of mini-games thrown in. It's colourful and a very nice adventure. What's different about this one is that you can play it as a family. It's a pleasure to watch. It's good in these testing times, and with 90% off, this is certainly worth a punt. Atari Flashback Classics is a jam-packed collection of 150 games. It throws together 3 separately released collections released on other consoles. With that many games, what we have is a mixture of titles from the 70s, 80s and early 90s. Some of the games are still a blast to play, whilst others have aged terribly. Controls are all over the place and they look horrid. It's an interesting slice of history, and touchscreen controls and the ability to play some games in vertical mode are welcome additions, but ultimately it's hit and miss. Some are great and some not so much. Space Pioneer is a twin-stick shooter set across a number of worlds. You get to visit different planets for each level and take down a horde of alien enemies whilst succeeding at objectives from escorting people to taking out alien nests. The mechanics and controls are tight, and you can tackle the game with friends in cart mode. After a while, the game does get a bit repetitive, stopping it from reaching the heights of some other shooters out there, but nevertheless, a sci-fi, world-hopping twin-stick shooter with decent controls is worth investing in, with a chunky 80% off right now. Akane is a little gem. It has the simplest gameplay but manages to be highly addictive and fun to play. You control Akane, a badass katana-wielding heroine that is making her last stand against the Yakuza in an arena where one hit is death, either for you or your foes. The beauty of the game is the superb controls and the dynamic of slicing and shooting. Combat becomes almost rhythmic as you hack your way through the hordes. There are a few things to unlock and the leaderboards there to keep you going. I love the cyberpunk style, from the neon lights to the enemy designs. Very cool, this one. This is a turn-based RPG where battles take place on a grid and are heavily dependent on rolling dice. Yes, this is one of those games that is all about RNG. It looks pretty poor and there is nothing outstanding about it in truth, but all of the core mechanics are here: a cheesy story, a leveling system, quests, and the like. At less than £1, it's a sort of game that you might pick up to pass some time on in between chunkier games. And there you have it, folks, a bunch of eShop games worth considering. What is your pick of the week? Let us know down below. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Tomorrow we will be back with our physical roundup. In the meantime, congratulations to Adrian Emil, this week's winner. Please email us and we'll get you that voucher. Stay safe, everyone. Take care, and why not consider subscribing for more content like this one. We'll see you tomorrow.